FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
You are listening to the Financial Survival Network, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. This is episode 384. I'm Kerry Lutz, and we're brought to you by KeepMyID.org, new sponsor. I'm also doing a podcast with them. And hey, I really believe in this service. I've got it. It's the only identity theft protection company out there that actually, and you're going to find this hard to believe because you see the identity theft protection advertised all over the internet, any place you go, on television. But look, it's the only identity theft protection service out there that actually prevents identity theft. They lock up your credit reports. You should sign up now. Go over to keepmyid.org. Use the code. You'll get a substantial discount, FSN2. Go there now. I'm telling you, Pat Crow in the military, helping to protect the country for years and years. Him and Brandon McCarthy and other guys in law enforcement got together, set this thing up. It's unique. It will lock up your credit reports so nobody can go opening up accounts in your name. KeepMyID.org. Use the code FSN2. So let's talk about what's going on here. You heard David Gerwitz over from Charles Nenner on the show yesterday. Of course, now they're slamming gold. It's down $17.50 the ounce. Well, I can't help the timing. Silver down 75 cents the ounce. Of course, today the lawnmowers are out in my neighborhood. I can't help that. This is Florida, and the community that I'm currently living in, they've got guys out here with you know, they're just always grooming the place. They're fanatical about it, which is good. Keeps the place looking nice. It's just a pain when I'm trying to do my show. They're out there with toenail clippers, manicuring all the lawns. It's just the craziest thing. It's not some high-end crazy community either. They just are really meticulous about doing these things. But gold and silver, it's going to be a back and forth thing. I don't think it's really going up until 2016. That, according to Elliott wave theory. Even Nenner says that up until August, and then it's anybody's guess. But he's saying a few $100s till the end of August. That remains to be seen. One thing that he is quite vehement about is nat gas. He thinks it's going up until and for the rest of the year, the better part of the year, it's up over $3 per thousand cubic feet per million BTU, however they measure it. I always have a problem keeping track of that. I think it's per million BTU is the way it gets listed on the exchanges. So look, war on e-cigarettes. I think e-cigarettes are really a great technological advance on helping you to quit smoking cigarettes. When you smoke a cigarette, it's got thousands of different chemicals and alkaloids in there. And you know the damage that smoking cigarettes, and I'm saying conventional cigarettes, like the kind that you buy at the store, really does untold harm, has killed millions of people around the globe over the past 100 plus years. Look, both of my parents died of lung cancer. My father died at 59. My mother died at 74 years old, way too young. I smoked cigarettes myself from around the age of 19 to around 20 and change. I quit. I just figured if I kept smoking, I was going to be a goner. And I just decided that wasn't for me. National Review Online, not always my favorite publication. It was William F. Buckley's magazine. And what's happened, you can speculate on this, but look, the federal government and the state governments pull in hundreds of billions of dollars a year on cigarette taxes. In addition, Wall Street pulls in untold billions of dollars a year, because what happened, you had this ridiculous lawsuit against the cigarette manufacturers. They settled the lawsuit in exchange for a cut of their future revenues. Creative states like New York, New Jersey, I think Connecticut, California, look this up. I don't remember exactly which states did it. They sold bonds, revenue bonds, based upon their future take of the payout from the tobacco companies. And what happened is they raised their taxes so high that people are smuggling in cigarettes from southern states like Virginia, North Carolina to evade those taxes. And as a result, many of the anticipated revenues have failed to materialize. But so effectively in New York, pack of cigarettes is like $12 if it's properly taxed. And a lot of the cigarettes have fake tax stamps on them. So the owners really clean up. And a lot of your $12 goes to Wall Street to finance those revenue bonds. So they came out with these e-cigarettes, and Congress just hates them. This guy Waxman, Frank Pallone Jr. of New Jersey, he's a congressman, told the president of NBC they were dismayed that Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she was vaping. That's the term for inhaling off of an electronic cigarette at the 2014 Golden Globes ceremony, and they had their panties in a bunch in a bruising Senate hearing. Senator Jay Rockefeller, I think he's a former senator, he's going to be, said, "I'm ashamed of you," to the e-cigarette companies. "I don't know how you go to sleep at night. I don't know what gets you to work in the morning except the color green of dollars." But of course, the cigarette companies who he approves of, they're okay. You are what is wrong with this company. And look, the e-cigarette, all it does is it gets rid of the tar that you inhale. You inhale much less nicotine, although a lot of people abuse these e-cigarettes. It's just crazy. I mean, why shouldn't you be allowed to smoke an e-cigarette on an airplane, in a public building? Because there's no secondhand smoke from e-cigarettes. When you exhale, all you're doing is exhaling water vapor for the most part. And there's two camps of people, or two sides to this story. What they call them are pragmatists and precautionist. The precautionist say, we don't know all the side effects of these e-cigarettes. They might kill people just like cigarettes. We can't take a risk. The precautionist say, look, people are going to smoke no matter what, so we will just say that the e-cigarettes are so much less worse. They don't have all these chemicals from the paper, from the filters. And the pragmatist, the precautionist both agree on one point: devices should not be sold or marketed to children. And the Senator for Disease Control, they just want it all wiped out no matter what. Well, look, why not just ban cigarettes then? Well, they're not going to do that because the states and municipalities that rely upon cigarette taxes would go bankrupt. And this is what it comes down to. The medical establishment is totally opposed to e-cigarettes, but they're not saying ban cigarettes. So it's a really hypocritical argument that these precautionist are coming out against e-cigarettes. You're better off not smoking either. But if you're going to smoke something, you're better off smoking an e-cigarette than a regular cigarette where you burn the stuff and it really causes a lot of harm. The tar and carbon monoxide that comes off of a regular cigarette is far more harmful than just the vaping tobacco and water vapor that comes out of an e-cigarette. And big tobacco is much behind what's going on here. Let's face it, because they see that of the 40 million people who are smoking cigarettes, the e-cigarettes, most effective treatment that's ever come about from enabling people to give up smoking cigarettes. Big Pharma has got a bunch of drugs that they get billions of dollars of years selling to try to get you to smoke, to get you to quit smoking cigarettes. So Big Pharma's really behind this stuff as well, because they see their product not being nearly as effective as these e-cigarettes. So you've got this war going on, and just follow the money, and you understand that e-cigarettes, while they're not a cure by any stretch, are really, really the best treatment that we've ever had for treating the millions of people who are hooked on cigarettes. Is it a cure? No, but it certainly is the lesser of two evils. So you got to look at it, and you got to think, hey, what are the interests of the government, and what are the interests of the people? Here, the interest of the government is keep you smoking cigarettes, keep the tax revenues flowing. E-cigarettes, lesser of two evils. If you're going to smoke, you're better off smoking e-cigarettes than you are smoking regular cigarettes. I mean, it's really that simple. So another thing that I thought was cool, this came up in WorldNet Daily, right-wing website, that their writer there, Patrice Lewis, says that we are breeding a generation of Peter Pans. And I love it. She kind of poo-poos a gloom and doom piece from Zero Hedge, who we love, that a generational storm is coming. Basically, that the older folks, like people my age, I'm going to be 58. Everything is written by the older people to favor rising asset prices, because the older people own stocks and bonds. The older people, even if you don't own any personally, if you're a part of a pension plan, if you're a government worker who's going to be retiring at some point in the not too distant future, your pension plan is invested in stocks primarily and bonds to some extent, and you are invested in the stock market. Whereas the younger folks out there, you are a wage earner. And if you're dependent upon wages haven't gone up in real terms for the past 30 years. They've even gone down. So as a result, the younger people are getting screwed, and they're really getting tired of it. And due to the dumbing down of the educational system, and if you happen to have heard my interview with Bruce Price, you really understand that even better than you understood it before. I really suggest you take a listen to it. Then you understand that these younger people are really not happy with what's happening in society. And we've got a perfect generational storm brewing, and it's really damaging the middle class. And then you add that with unrestricted immigration, and bad things are on the way here for the middle class, and they're going to take it out when they're in the position to cut back on entitlements, on government pensions. A lot of nasty things are going to happen to you. So you better understand that stuff's going to happen here, that it ain't going to be good. So anyway, we don't get into politics a lot, like Republican versus Democrat, because it's just opposite sides of the same coin. But Peter Schweitzer, one of my favorite authors out there, because he really calls it like it is, wrote this book, Clinton Cash. So really smart guy. What they do is, now you heard about this guy, Stephanopoulos, former henchman for the Clintons, never really former. He gets a position with ABC as a so-called news reporter. He's on Good Morning America now. And this week, what they don't tell you about is that he's getting paid $105 million over the next 5 years. So unbeknownst to everyone except Schweitzer, I believe, he had contributed $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And so they get an interview with him on This Week, which is like Meet the Depressed and all of those Sunday morning talking head shows, which I've stopped watching years ago. So they don't mention it while he's pillorying Schweitzer, saying that this is all anti-Clinton stuff. He never gets to the root of the charges, that the Clinton Foundation is just a slush fund and couldn't care less about charities. And he's just totally coming down on Schweitzer, saying, well, you once wrote speeches for George W. Bush, and they let him go out about his business. And then a few days later, it just happens to leak to the press that Stephanopoulos donated $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. He never disclosed it to ABC. He never disclosed it on the show. And now George Stephanopoulos is radioactive. ABC is like up the creek without a paddle. It's just a brilliant, brilliant plan, the way they set this guy up. And he ain't too bright is what it comes down to. But progressives really aren't very bright. And they just set themselves up for the inevitable humiliation. They're going to have to get rid of him. There's nothing that they can do because he's lost all credibility. And good riddance to George Stephanopoulos. It's reasons like him that the media is held in such low esteem. And the sooner that he goes, the better. Never been able to stomach the guy anyway. And hey, good riddance. Did you happen to see the shootout that they had out in Texas in Waco? Nothing ever good comes in Waco, Texas. I don't know if you happen to notice that. But 9 of these bikers got killed there at some breakfast place. They had an argument over a parking space. Remember, I told you this, never argue over a parking space. If somebody wants a parking space that you deserve to have, let them have it. It's not worth fighting over a space ever. Who cares? There's always going to be another parking space. And if you can't go to the place because you can't get a parking space, don't worry about it. It's never that important. I don't care about parking spaces that much. I almost got into an altercation over one near my house a few months ago. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be on the news over a parking space. I'm just going to let it go because a parking space is not worth it. Okay? It just ain't worth it. There's no reason to get into a fight and perhaps either you get killed or the person you're fighting over the parking space with gets injured or killed and you wind up in jail. Don't do it, okay? It isn't worth it and you just don't want to take the risk. It's just not it's not worth ever getting into a altercation over. Be the bigger person. Your ego is not worth it. So De Blasio, man, he's always late for everything. I'm sure he was probably late for his own birth, but they were having a commemoration for late Herman Badillo, who was the first Hispanic congressman in New York, I believe, and he was councilman there. Really had some amazing accomplishments. He helped revolutionize higher ed in New York under Mayor Giuliani, and the guy's 20 minutes late to his speech, and it's just typical. In New York, they're always up to no good through regulation, and they don't like motorized pedicabs, which are technically legal. Evidently, there's all sorts of dangers from motorized pedicabs because the things might go 15 miles an hour and somebody might get hurt. So they want to ban them, of course. And, this is what happens in the regulatory democracy. There's always somebody giving you grief, always somebody trying to put you out of business, shake you down for money. And this De Blasio thinks that he's going to be the next president. He plans to challenge Hillary, and he plans to he thinks that he has a crack at becoming president. I mean, he refused to endorse Hillary, and he's just, God, I don't know. He's the least self-aware politician that I've ever seen. But, maybe he's tapped into something for millennials. Cuomo, man, you haven't heard about him lately. Well, he is now very, very concerned about nail salons, and he's preparing to institute sweeping measures on the industry. He's going to introduce regulations that would give New York State Department the ability to shutter unlicensed salons, make it easier for manicurists to obtain licenses, and enforce strict safety measures. And one point he says, our point is simple. Exploitation has no place in the state of New York. And there was an investigation into the industry by the Times, I guess it was. And evidently they're not treating them well. And I don't know what their deal is here. So it looked like an easy way for newcomers to the country to get into the American dream. There's 17,000 nail salons in the United States, according to census data. And the number of nail salons in New York City alone has more than tripled over a decade and a half to 2,000 in 2012. But overlooked is the rampant exploitation of those who toil in the industry. Times interviewed more than 150 nail salon workers and owners in 4 languages, no less. And the vast majority are paid below minimum wage. Sometimes they're not even paid. They endure all manner of humiliation, including having their tips docked as punishment for minor transgressions. If you ever saw that Seinfeld episode, they say nasty things about their clients in Korean. And I don't know if they're that exploited. I just find it hard to believe that they're that exploited, but who knows? Shows them sleeping in the salon. I'm just not sure about this. It looks like an excuse for the government to get involved in something else. It sounds like this industry will be shutting down shortly, because once the government gets involved in something, you know how it works. Anyway, go over to keepmyid.org. Make sure you use the discount code FSN2. It is the only service out there where they actually prevent identity theft, not where you monitor it and you get to watch as your identity gets stolen. And that's it for now. Look, if you got any questions, any comments, send me an email, khl@kerrylutz.com. And make sure you go over to iTunes, the iTunes store, and subscribe to the show. Just type in Kerry Lutz. You'll come up with it. Just hit subscribe and you're done. And thanks for listening. We're coming up on 4 years in June. I can't even believe it. I really appreciate all of you listening. It's changed my life. Hopefully, I've made a contribution to yours as well. This has been another Triple Lutz Report. Kerry Lutz signing off.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.